we said we were going to cover four, indicators, four signs that a marriage is in trouble, telltale signs. As a matter of fact, Dr. John Gottman is a pioneer in relationship research, especially in marriages. There's something called the Gottman Institute. We'd highly encourage you to go and actually look at some of their research and their insights, just phenomenal. And one of the things that Dr. Gottman and his research team say is that there are four, they call them the four predictors of divorce. In other words, when you see these four symptoms in a marriage, unless you do something to address them, they are very likely to lead to a breakup of that marriage and divorce. And so really, as marriage mentors, our mission is really to save marriages, from getting to that point. And so that's why most couples that come to us at a point of desperation, where sometimes they've done all they can, and this is not in any way to denigrate the great work done by counselors and therapists, but sometimes people have gone through those things and haven't got the results. And so one of the things that we really felt we need to do today is for you to be able to identify these signs, and if they're present in your marriage, then you take them seriously, because if you leave them unchecked, unattended, then they could get you into big trouble, down the road. All right. So if anybody's watching on YouTube, hey friends, please say hi to us as well, because we're on YouTube as well. So Sulojana, let's not waste any time. Let's just get right to the four signs. We've already started talking about them a little bit in our posts on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram actually as well. So the number one sign, there's somebody else joining us from LinkedIn, Patrick. Great to have you on board, Patrick. Thank you for saying hi. Let us know where you're joining us from. Would be good to know. All right. And so the number one sign that we started writing about, sharing about, is called
stonewalling or withdrawal.
Okay. And so Sulojana, let's maybe start with the definition of what stonewalling or withdrawal is. Maybe you can read this definition that we have in front of us.
Yeah. I think it's a very good description, so I might as well read it. Stonewalling or withdrawing or shutting down and refusing to deal with conflict. It can be done both emotionally by closing off and refusing to talk, or physically by walking away or leaving.
Okay.
So that's called stonewalling.
Yeah. So of course, the expression stonewalling really means that like you're putting up a wall that the other person is running into. It's like a stone wall, and they cannot get anywhere with you, or the marriage cannot get anywhere because one person essentially, Sulojana, is refusing to cooperate, right? Is refusing to face the stuff that is happening. Like, let's say, for example, there's a conflict or an issue of conflict that keeps coming up in a marriage. When one person just puts up that wall and just absolutely refuses to deal with it, that's stonewalling. Now, it's also a form of withdrawing emotionally. So sometimes, and that's why both words are used. Withdrawal could also be physical, couldn't it? Where somebody just I'm out of here,
walks away.
I don't don't bring that up right now. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not ready to deal with it. Like those kind of statements. And by the way, I just want to say something about that, because there are times, like even Sulojana, when we've had conflicts where one of us is not ready to deal with it. Sometimes it's me, and sometimes
it's me.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's not an uncommon thing to happen in a marriage where like a real hot potato comes up, and so you do want to maybe take some time to deal with it. So that's not stonewalling, right?
I think one of the reasons is maybe there was an issue brought up earlier, and it caused a big argument, and the other person doesn't want that happening, so they just want to walk away or
Yeah.
not deal with it,
Yeah.
right? So that's what this stonewalling or
Yeah.
withdrawal is about.
Yeah. So we're getting some really good comments here.
Mhm.
Let's see. Let's put up Justin's comment here. Justin says, it's a terribly painful thing for someone who stonewalls the other party, especially the one being stonewalled is willing. Okay. In other words, one person is really eager,
Want to deal with
to
it
deal with the
and
issue
resolve.
and resolve it. But if the other person keeps on, putting up that wall and refuses to deal with it,
Mhm.
then it can be incredibly frustrating. Which is a really good point that you bring up, Justin, because that's actually a nice segue for us into the second sign,
Mhm.
that a marriage is in trouble or headed to divorce, which is
Criticism.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Now this is criticism. It's minimizing.
Yeah, but let's just maybe stick with stonewalling for a second. And how would how could stonewalling produce criticism or lead to criticism? It's exactly what Justin says. Okay, so for example, let's say that I refuse to deal something with Sulojana, and Sulojana is now, you're angry that I'm not dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
So
So I start criticizing Jiva.
exactly, yeah,
Because
yeah,
he's trying to avoid
yeah,
and doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it almost becomes, nagging. I want to get it done now, but Jiva doesn't want to. So now you keep on nagging. That becomes criticism.
Yeah. According to like people who've been in the relationship field longer than we have, Sulojana said we've only been doing this for 4 years or so, but like we've read material put out by people like Dr. John Gottman and others, who have been like therapists and counselors, and they say it's actually very common for men to do more stonewalling, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So men don't want to deal with it, and then one of the common ways that the women respond, the wives respond, is with
criticism.
Right? Yeah. And so you could see that, like, they kind of feed on each other.
Yeah.
Which, again, is one of the things that the Gottmans point out, in their research, is that these behaviors are not independent of each other. And we're going to get to the good news afterwards. We want to give the bad news first about why these behaviors, left unchecked, can really cause a lot of damage. All right. Yeah. Okay. Great to see our friend Cheryl Hilton. Good to have you join us. And Cheryl said she shared it with everybody, with others, and some of the others who are joining us. Friends, if you could just share that, hey, this is happening with your friends. We still got about half an hour left, so there's still lots of good stuff that we can share. And also,
thanks everyone who are sharing and who are here.
And we love this interaction. With some of the comments that you're putting out, we won't show them all because sometimes we don't even see them all when they're speeding by us. But and if you have any questions very specifically about something that we said, then please ask those questions. We love to be able to answer them, and as they come to you. Okay, we don't mind being interrupted at all. Okay, because we know what we're talking about. Okay, Cheryl just gave a good suggestion. Start a watch party. If you're on Facebook, start a watch party. Very, very simple. Click on that share button and say click on start a watch party, and you can have others join us. All right. And so Sulojana, one of the things that we need to maybe point out to people is the difference between like legitimately pointing something out to someone that they're doing that is maybe upsetting you, or that is not proper, that is rubbing you the wrong way, and criticizing. So one of the things, we actually had this happen one time. We had a couple that we were mentoring, and they needed to they were in business together.
That's right.
Yeah. And so they had to do things together. And that's just the nature of the business. They both got to do their part.
Like a family business.
And so there were times when I will just stick to the one example where she did something that was very essential for their business, but it was not done the proper way. And she would be the first one to admit that she didn't do it the right way. Okay. And so now the way that he pointed it out, this is where the argument came, or the issue came up. I was just correcting her, and she said, no, you were criticizing me. Okay. So they asked us the question, what is the difference between simply correcting my spouse, or like lodging a genuine complaint, if you will. I think I used the word filing a complaint in the post yesterday. What is the difference between like filing a complaint or correcting versus criticizing?
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say is the difference between correcting and criticizing?
Now, correcting, you have a goal. You want to point out the right way to do it, right?
Yeah.
That person is not doing something right. Say, example, a process, right?
Yeah.
So they need to show what is the right way to do it.
Yeah. Like, like we don't want to give out too many details because we want to, preserve the confidentiality of the couple in question. But let's just use an example, like at home, maybe. Okay. So let's say that that we're like I'm, I'm cooking in the kitchen. Okay. And you're just around watching, not supervising. Okay. Sulojana does not supervise. Yeah, she monitors though. So she's watching me, maybe let's say do some baking, which I'm honestly not an expert at, because she's done a lot more baking than I have. Okay. And so let's say that, like I'm adding the ingredients, together. But I'm not doing it the way that she's used to doing it, the way that produces results. And I don't know, it's a new recipe for me, but she's done the recipe many times before. And so she needs to let me know that the way that I'm, mixing, let's say, as an example, everything together, the wet and the dry ingredients together,
that's right.
is like it's okay. But she knows that the way that I'm doing it is probably not going to turn out the way that it's supposed to, because she's done many times before. So here's the difference between correcting and criticizing. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So correcting is to say, hey Jeeva, the way that you're mixing it, I'm not sure that's the right way to do it, honey, because I don't know if the cake's going to turn out quite the way it ought to, the way that you're mixing like quite aggressively, like a man. Okay. Or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, the cake might be just flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, criticizing is
that's right.
It's really, in some ways, it becomes like an attack on me,
minimizing.
Yeah. It's like, hey, can't you do this right? Don't you know this is not the way to mix this stuff? Haven't you never seen me do it? Like something along those lines. See, now the criticism actually goes past what is actually being done. It is now directed at the person.
Yeah.
So
it becomes a personal
attack. Exactly. Yeah. Rather than correcting, what was being done, or or something simple as, hey, like would it be okay if I showed you, how it's done? Now, like am I going to say no to that? No. See what I mean? So this is where we need to be careful. So this does not mean that we never correct our spouse, or legitimately let them know that something that they're doing, can be done differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want the cake to turn out right.
In this case, right? Yeah.
In this
okay.
case, we're just using this example.
All right. Okay.
And if you have been criticizing for a long time, which is I've done it, and it's time. We're just giving you little tips how you can change it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to change your thinking process. How you say to your husband or wife.
Yeah.
The wording.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just move from there very quickly to the other two symptoms as well, because criticism often actually produces sign number 3. Randolph, you can put that up for us there. Number 3 is defensiveness.
Yeah.
Okay. And so defensiveness is simply what it says it is. I mean, like the person who is at the receiving end of the criticism, starts getting defensive. about what is being said, what is being done, and you try to say, well, like I know how to do it.
Start giving excuses
Yeah,
or
making excuses. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so defensiveness, quite often is a direct consequence of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
It's just honestly, defensiveness is, as I believe, quite often is a mechanism. Yeah, it's a human mechanism that we respond with. And so, but one of the things that often happens when we get defensive is we shift the blame onto the other person. So defensiveness is really a kind of a sly way, if you will, of blaming the other person, where you do not take any responsibility for what you did. Yeah. So, for example, when in the cake example, okay, like if I simply said, "Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that the way that I'm, beating the life out of this batter here is going to affect the way the cake turns out. Oh, gee, I'm sorry that I did that. Like that is taking responsibility for what you did, what I did. Defensiveness is, hey, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. Aren't you glad I'm even baking for you? Or doing some baking around the house. Okay, so you're kind of like another word that we talked about this defensiveness is actually justifying. Like justification, right?
Yeah.
Justifying your behavior. Okay, and so
justifying what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Or you could even say you're making excuses, right? Yeah, for why you're doing something that you really ought not to be doing. And so all those kind of things, like and we can use a number of other examples, and maybe another day, maybe in the new year we can just even talk about each of these in a little bit more detail, because it's very difficult. One of the toughest thing for anybody to do, not just in a marriage, but even outside of marriage, is to admit that you're wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because you feel like you're coming across as being weak, or you're giving up your rights, your position, whatever the case may be. All right.
Especially men don't like too much.
That is very, very true.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Men, as a rule, and I think even the counselors that we read would say that men tend to get more defensive than women do.
Yeah.
Okay, and so anyway, it could be the exact opposite in your marriage. Like we don't want to generalize that.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Say that women never get defensive.
Yeah.
But generally speaking,
and the other way too, criticism.
Yeah.
It says mostly women criticize, but you cannot generalize that either.
But again, just remember this, that the stonewalling or the withdrawal often, induces the other person to respond with criticism.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then see how this is the insidious kind of stuff. It goes back and forth. So there's withdrawal, stonewalling, producing criticism, and then the criticism produces defensiveness. See? And now, if you allow these things to keep on happening in your marriage, then you come to a place which is the fourth sign. And actually, the Gottmans would say that this is the most definitive predictor of divorce in a marriage, is called contempt. Okay, Randolph, you want to put that up for us, brother? Okay, so contempt, put that in capital letters if you can. All right, so contempt is the biggie, as that's what I called it in my blog post. It is the biggie. And by the way, Dr. Gottman, had a saying that he could predict by observing these signs in a couple with a 95% accuracy if they were going to stay together or not. And he said one of the reasons he was able to predict with such a high accuracy is when he saw this baby here, which is contempt. Because he said, when I saw contempt, I knew pretty well at that point this couple was going to have to work really hard to change things, and quite likely at that they may have reached a point where they are not willing to put that effort in. It's not that you cannot, but the will to do it by that time, has really in some ways, been beaten out of them, right? Yeah, yeah. So, Sulojana, what would be some signs of contempt? Okay,
Oh,
yeah. Like another word for contempt would be
it's a,
disrespect,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um,
This
so
bitterness.
yeah, like all those things really produce,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. Contempt is usually the result of things building up,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
That's a good word. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm just going
like
to pull up something.
like
Uh,
criticism.
and the defensiveness, you allow these behaviors to
Exactly.
go
Build
on.
up and
Yeah,
never get resolved.
yeah,
Then it ends up in contempt.
yeah. So some of the signs of contempt would be sarcasm. Where there's a lot of sarcasm
Mm.
in the way that one person talks to another, then that's a sign of contempt. Name calling, mimicking what the other person says. Well, whatever they say, you say back to them, but you say that with a kind of a mocking tone, or even one of the things the Gottmans, by the way, they've done some great experiments. I think they call them the love lab, where they get couples to interact with each other when they observe, and so they also look at body language, and so they've said
Yes.
that things even such as like rolling the eyes, and person
Mm.
goes, I can't even know, I don't know how to do it. I don't think you've ever rolled your eyes at me.
Sometimes.
Yeah, very rarely, right?
Very
I mean,
rare.
yeah, I never learned how to do that. They never taught that in seminary or in husband school. Okay, all right. And so, but we've seen couples do this,
Yeah.
because
Oh
we
yeah.
interact with a lot of couples over the years, where one you can just see the other person just starts rolling their eyes, because it conveys disgust.
Discussed. Yeah.
It lets the other person or makes the other person feel that they are inferior.
Inferior.
Yeah, and the person that is
Condescending.
showing condescending,
Acting
yeah,
as
and
a superior
exactly,
to
and
the
the
other person.
message that the other person gets is, I'm not as good as you, or the person that is showing contempt, says, hey, I'm a
I'm
lot better
better.
than you.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to say something that some people may not like, but we have actually seen Christian couples do this in a very destructive way. Okay, I'm just going to stay on park here for just 30 seconds and explain what I mean by that. Virtually, like every couple that we have worked with in our mentorship, as well as couples that I've dealt with, all through 35 plus years of pastoral ministry, we always find that there's an imbalance or a discrepancy, a difference in, let me just call that the level of spiritual maturity in a husband and a wife. Like it's very rare, although I shouldn't say it's very rare. More often than not, you will find that husbands and wives, especially in the church setting, I'm not talking about our leader friends, pastor friends. Most of the time we find everybody's like very close in the level of spiritual maturity, right?
Right.
But quite often, you would find that one person maybe a little bit. I don't want to say like higher, lower, kind of a hierarchical kind of a language, but like I'll give you a quick example where let's say that in a marriage, one person has been a follower of Jesus for quite a bit longer than the other.
Yeah. Exactly. That's
Right?
the way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so they're really used to, like being in church regularly. They've read the Bible more. They genuinely have more knowledge, of the Bible.
Yeah.
They probably, have spent more time in prayer. In some cases, they are very comfortable, with the ministry of the Holy Spirit, and like those kind of things, right?
Move in healing and
Yeah, in the gifts and so on. And the other person, the spouse, is maybe a newer believer, or they may be a believer all their lives, but they have not really been, exposed, to this, way of, of expressing your faith. And so that's what I meant by the discrepancy. So one person, is here, one person is here, let's say. Um, so now all of a sudden, what can end up happening? We've actually seen this happen right before our very eyes in certain mentorship situations, where one person will basically try to tell the other person, hey, like don't forget where I'm at. Don't forget, and they will use certain phrases and words that very clearly uh, convey contempt. So, so when you put yourself on a that's another way to look at it. Put yourself up on a pedestal compared to where the other person is, and you make them feel morally, spiritually, or in any other way inferior to you. Now there's contempt.
Yes.
All right, Dr. Bernita May, thank you for joining us, and our friend Jerry, good to have you all on board. Hey, anybody else that's joining us, say hi to us. Tell us where you're from. We'd love to say hi back to you. Okay, so this is where when one person is always standing. Let's say, like, if you take an example of a staircase, and one person always stands 3-4 steps ahead of the other, and forces the other person to always look up to them. And the thing is, even in reality, if you are spiritually more mature, there's another great quality that is a very good sign of spiritual maturity. The Bible calls it humility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being humble. Okay.
Yeah. So if you allow pride to come in, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. And that's not what Jesus wants, right? Yeah, to consider one person more superior than the other.
Yeah.
Even if they know more, or they have been a Christian longer, they shouldn't look at them as
Exactly.
lower. That only, what will happen is only pushes them away even further from God.
Yeah.
We have seen all this happen, right?
Oh, there's our friend Alice Bars from Regina joining us. Hello, Alice. Good to have you on board. Yeah. So, so again, we're kind of getting a little bit into the antidotes here as well. But friends, let's just say that the 4 things that we mentioned, are signs that a marriage is in trouble. And if you don't address these things, you are likely headed, towards, a breakup, separation, maybe even divorce. So let's go back to see again, once again, how these all, like lead to each other. This is almost like a flow chart. Okay. So withdrawal, or stonewalling, where quite often one person, puts up this barrier and is unwilling to deal with things, or walks out of an argument, for example, literally refuses to participate. That then makes the other person, quite upset. And one of the ways in which you will respond to stonewalling is with criticism. Okay. And so again, how did we define criticism? Criticism is really different from correction, in that you're not pointing out what was done wrong. You are really attacking the person, at the level of character, and not just at the level of what they did, but who they are. Right. And so that's where criticism then stings. And criticism will then produce defensiveness, because the person being criticized will try to justify their behavior. They'll put the blame on the other person. Again, none of this is wrong, is right. These are all destructive behaviors. We're not saying they're justified. We're just saying that one can produce the other without much difficulty, right? And then from defensiveness, we now can get to this really bad stage, which is contempt. All right. So Sulojana, let's take the remaining few minutes here, and talk a little bit about how can we address these things where they are present in a marriage. So married couples who are watching this, we don't want anybody to say anything in response in a public forum like this. You can contact us afterwards and let us know if any of these things are in your marriage and you need some help with that. We'll definitely be able to provide you with some help. But let's just provide you with some general ways in which you can address these things. Okay. So Sulojana, stonewalling, withdrawal is usually a refusal to deal with something. And why would you say that, like a couple, or in this case, like one of the spouses, is reluctant, to actually, like deal with things honestly? What could be a good reason why they're not they're responding with stonewalling.
They are not heard. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
I think the way you phrase things, right?
exactly.
The way you phrase your concern is very important.
Yeah. So like we've actually, like had couple of lessons. I'm sure that you can relate to this. Well, I know I need to bring this up, but the last time I brought this up, this is what happened.
Mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So when you look at these 4 behaviors, thanks again, Randolph, for putting them all together for us. When you don't want to get hurt again, or sometimes we've actually had somebody say to us, like, I don't want to put myself in a place where I may say or do something I would regret later. And that's not like like hurting somebody physically, but verbally. Maybe some things will come out of my mouth, then I can't take them back. You can't put toothpaste back in the tooth in the tube. Okay, and so it's the fear of what could happen, and not knowing how to properly phrase things. Okay, so for example, criticism quite often begins or uses the words like you did that, why always, can't you always, or you never. Those kind of things, right? And so a very simple way in which to actually turn that around, which will actually really help you address, I would say, the first 3 for sure. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Is how would somebody how should somebody phrase it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The proper way would be to start, your sentence like, when you say that, or when you did that, or when you said that to me, this is how it made me feel.
Yeah. Or I feel, I felt, etc. Okay. Now, counselors, often call these I statements, as in the pronoun I. And very simply, the reason why they're called I statements is because you're not, like aiming, attacking the other, exactly, accusing the other person with you. Okay, but you are talking about the impact of what they did on yourself, right? Yeah. So, for example, rather than saying, "Hey, like you're always late," you say you're going to come home from work on time, and you just show up whenever. Okay, now that is very clearly a criticism. Okay,
and that's a common way we all say things. We don't even think.
Yeah. And part of it is because we're conditioned, to, hey, tell it like it is, right? Tell it like it is. Okay. Well, sometimes when you tell it like it is, you may not like the way things turn out. Okay. So a better way for that is to say that would be, hey, when you keep on coming late, then I feel worried, like I feel anxious, I feel upset. Okay. So you're talking at the level of your feelings and what it stirred up in you emotionally. Okay. So you are pointing out, see, you have to be totally honest with each other in a relationship, right? You cannot just like try and smooth things over. Like if somebody thinks, well, you know what, I'm not going to bring that up, it's not worth the hassle. I'm actually being like nice to my spouse by not bringing it up, and okay, because you're now going to keep it inside of you, you're going to stew over it and later on, or you're going to keep on piling up a list of complaints, and every one of them is like an ember in a volcano that's it's still alive, and it could come out and then blow up on you, right?
It doesn't get resolved.
Yeah.
Your spouse doesn't know what's going on or how you're feeling.
Yeah.
So the 2 main words to remember: when. Start the sentence with when. When you did that, or when you said that, and then the second word is I feel.
I felt, it made me feel, it made me felt. Again, be careful that you don't say you made me feel.
Right.
It's like what you did or did not do that made me feel. Okay. Or quite often counselors will teach you to start the other way and saying, I feel, really anxious and worried and upset when
When,
you
yeah,
is
that's
another
a
way
good
to
way.
phrase it as
Yeah.
well. Okay. All right. So part of
Mm.
this stonewalling behavior can be avoided, if you know that you can use this particular construct, this particular way of framing the issue
Mhm.
that will not make the other person jump all over you. If you had accused them, if you had criticized them, then they'll get defensive. But when you say it this way,
Mhm.
then, like for example, let's say this doesn't really happen in our case, but let's say that Slojana says that to me about being late or not letting her know that I'm going to be late, like something along those lines, which used to happen. Okay, it doesn't happen anymore because, well, we're all stuck at home for one thing. Okay, plus I'm retired now. All right, and so, but when she says, what, this is how it made me feel, or I felt that way, then what is my response is now it actually makes me take responsibility, not for her feelings, but for the way that my actions impacted her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so now it's like, oh really? Oh, you know
It
uh,
just tones the whole, atmosphere
yeah,
down.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah, exactly, it brings the temperature down, and you're not now in a fighting mode.
Hmm.
So
You
you're not
not
going
get
to,
defensive. You
yeah,
don't.
yeah, or you
Need
don't
to.
criticize back,
Yeah.
which by the way is another response that often criticism will get. When one person gets criticized, then they will try and hit the other person back. And what about you? You don't do anything wrong? Okay, how about the time you did this, like that type of thing. So this basically removes that completely out of the picture, because now it actually like puts you in a position of humility actually.
Mm.
And another good word which we mentioned earlier, with defensiveness, defensiveness means you do not take responsibility. But now when your spouse tells you, in this particular framework,
Mhm.
then you know you you really, in some ways, you have no choice but to take responsibility because you did do that, right? Yeah. And so, and it's like, yeah, I should have called you, honey. I should have let you know that I'm going to be late. And here, you already set the table and you're waiting for me, and dinner's
Mm.
getting cold. Blah blah blah, right? And so that's one thing, right?
Mhm.
Now let's just use the remaining like 4 or 5 minutes. We really should be finished by now, to talk about how to prevent contempt, from building up, because
Mhm.
that's where these all lead to, right? Yeah. Like as we said earlier, when we're reading some definitions of contempt doesn't um, come about overnight.
Mhm. That's true.
There's a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
Contempt is the cumulative effect, of a number of incidents earlier on, like criticisms piled on top of one another,
Mhm.
right? A lot of examples of defensiveness, a lot of unresolved hurts
Mhm.
that are piled up inside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what are some steps, Lojana, that couples can take to get rid of the contempt? Like, what are some proactive steps that you can take to even prevent contempt from setting in? Okay, so for example, if contempt is a result of built up anger,
Mhm.
resentment, bitterness, and so on, what is the perfect antidote to prevent that from happening? Is really, when your spouse does something to hurt
Forgive.
you, exactly.
Forgiveness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You
Forgiveness
start,
is
yeah, start practicing forgiveness.
forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a
So
big thing, very important thing in a marriage. You need it, in the beginning, almost every day. You forgive each other, and it gets better as you use all these little tips, tools. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you can use this not only in marriage, forgiveness, yeah, at work,
Hmm.
even outside. Any relationship,
Yeah,
your business.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we've covered this, by the way, in
Hmm.
previous
Yeah.
live sessions. if you go to, especially our YouTube channel, youtube.com and Jiva Sam, then all the recordings are actually right there in order. From I think the first one we began the series back in August 26th of August, all the way to today's will be there, and we've actually covered how do you properly forgive, right?
Yes.
And we've even talked about times when forgiveness is not easy, or when somebody's hurt you repeatedly, which unfortunately often is the way it is in a marriage, right? Yeah. So the flip side of it is, especially maybe there's some of you who are watching who are fairly young in your married life, a few months into marriage, or a year or two, or like 4 or 5, whatever, a relatively short period of time compared to us, golden oldies who've been married for 35 plus years, 37 plus years, right? So you start out right is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And even if you're not married yet, and you want to be married or plan to be married soon, then this is one way.
Yeah.
You can prevent things from getting to like even the 4 signs that we talked about today. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's just say one more thing very quickly about forgiveness. Forgiveness does not happen when you tell that person to their face that you forgive them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, sometimes you tell that to somebody who doesn't think they did anything wrong. That actually can backfire on you. Forgiveness is a spiritual transaction that happens between you and God. Okay. And so, by the way, like we've taught on all of this, we'll just quickly remind you of some of the quick steps that you can take. One of the steps to take, actually, the Gottmans recommend this, other counselors recommend this, with stonewalling, with withdrawal. So when one person kind of, like walks out or emotionally checks out of the conversation, to prevent that from taking you to a place where you are not going to resolve it, or you respond with criticism, the best thing to do is to take a time out. So you're kind of working with the need for somebody to withdraw, right? Because they're withdrawing because they want to deal with the conflict, and say, hey, how about we come back and talk about this in a couple of hours time.
Yeah.
And in that time, when you're by yourself, the number one thing you do is you forgive the other person, and you also grab a plate of a piece of humble pie. Okay. Taste some humility, and in that humility you repent. You ask God to forgive you for the way in which you respond. So if you responded with stonewalling, then you ask God to forgive you. And if let's say that it actually went past it and the other person actually started criticizing, now you repent for criticizing. So the person who criticized repents for criticizing, and forgives the other person for stonewalling. And the person who did the stonewalling repents of stonewalling and forgives the other person for criticizing. So when you do that, and then you come back together, and then you start with, hey, when you said that, I felt something along those lines. You have basically now turned things around, and you'll actually prevent yourself from getting into 3 and 4, because there's no reason for defensiveness now. Okay. As a matter of fact, like, there's a few other steps you can take. I think we covered that one day about reconciliation. And by the way, friends, we're going to just stop there for now. If you need help with any of this in a greater measure, like we're here for you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Send us a message.
Send us a direct message, a personal message, because we don't expect anybody to kind of air their dirty laundry out here, so to speak, for all the world to see. And so send us a private message, or go to our website. Let me just put that up here one more time. Let's see, where are we? So it tells us who we are at our website. Right at the very beginning, we put that up. Okay, there we are. Marriage Mentors, Jeeva Sulojana, sams.ca, thesams.ca is our website. Just go there, and there's a form that you can fill out, which we get notified, of right away, and we will get back to you and connect with you. And if we can just send you some material, we'll do that. If we need to meet with you, and provide you with some counsel, we can do that.
Mhm.
If you're at a point where you're like just about ready to give up on your marriage, then we can take you through our complete process, which will take you from the brink of breakdown to breakthrough in as little as 10 weeks, and we guarantee results.
Mhm.
All right. So we want to thank all of you for joining us.
We didn't see any questions.
Yeah. So if you have any questions coming out of what we taught,
Mhm.
which always, there always is something that we didn't quite address fully, or even as you heard this, something might have come up. Please send us those questions, because we could use those questions and answer them in future sessions.
Yeah, exactly. If we couldn't, we didn't get it on time, then we'll answer them next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in one of the following sessions. All right.
According to the topics we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just finish as we always do with the prayer and the blessing. So Sulojana will do that for us all. Okay, go for it.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for speaking through us, Lord, and thank you for guiding us with your presence. Thank you for each and every one who participated in this, in this live. And also thank you, Lord, for those who are going to listen to this recording in the future. Father, I pray a blessing upon all the marriages, or even those who are single and even preparing themselves for marriage. Father, be with them. I pray that everything that you spoke through us, Lord, will benefit them, if not now, maybe in the future, and prepare their hearts. And those who are married, Father, I pray that they will be able to use them in their marriage. And we thank you and praise you, Lord, that you bring people together in marriage, couples in marriage. And we pray, Father, that we will do our part. We will do all we can with the tools, with your word, and with everything that you have given us before even thinking about divorce, that we will do our best to work together. And Father, you want the best in our marriages. And Father, with your help, with us working together, we can always accomplish what you want us to accomplish. Which is a happy, joyful marriage. And with your help, it can be done. Father, we thank you and praise you for this time, Lord, and be with us each and every day. And I pray that, first of all, we will look up to you for strength and guidance. And we know everything else will fall into place as we do that. We love you, Lord, and we thank you and praise you for all your goodness and your greatness. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, I just feel like saying this in my spirit to somebody who is watching. I don't know if it's both of you watching together or one of you. I feel like like you are actually at the point of calling a lawyer and getting a divorce in motion. And I really felt like Sulojana was praying for you to ask yourself, for both of you to ask yourself, have we done everything possible to restore our marriage? And if you cannot say yes to that question, please hold off on making that call. One of the saddest things that we've seen, and I saw this way more in when I was pastoring, is people who regretted afterwards that they had actually gone through a divorce without exploring all the possible avenues when they saw how the divorce was impacting their children and how it was impacting them, the hardship that they were putting each other through as a result. And so to avoid all of that unnecessary guilt and hardship, especially on children, and not just on children, but on future generations, please use this as the test. Okay. And you know what? And we may be the couple that helps you do that, but you may not even need us.
Yeah, exactly.
Your pastor, some great counselors in your area,
or the leaders in the church,
or even another couple might be able to help you with that. But if you haven't reached out for help, unfortunately, we've seen this happen. People don't even reach out to somebody else for help and head straight for the divorce route. And sadly, it doesn't always end well. Okay? You get into adversarial mode and you get to a place where you cannot take back all the things that were said and done. And so please if this word is for you, then take it to heart.
The financial burden too is
Yeah.
crazy how much you end up spending, not only with lawyers and things like that, but I don't know, there are so many expenses, alimony, all that.
Yeah.
So just we just have to believe as followers of Jesus. God brought us together, and with God's help it can all be worked out.
Yeah. So our friend Perry Marshall, is also one of our online mentors. Perry Marshall, actually wrote a great article one time pointing out how a divorce affects people who are in business. And people quite often think, well, it's just a settlement. I can do this. I can handle the payments and so on. And he says, I will show you people that I know who went into a divorce that way, who now are finding that they have to make all these payments out of after-tax dollars. And so people have to downsize. The guys, especially he's talking because he deals with a lot of men, who are now living in, single bedroom apartments. The financial cost is way bigger than just the cost of going through a divorce, right? So anyway, regardless of all of that, just ask yourself this question, first of all, is have we done everything in our power to reach a place of restoration? And if you have, and one person, for example, says, no, I don't want to go there. I've already got somebody else in mind or another course of action in mind, and they refuse to do that way. Yes, you still have to keep on praying for them that God will change their heart. But sadly, there are times when, divorce seems to be the worst of two evils. Okay. And so, but today, we've showed you how you never have to get to that point. And also, especially coming out of this COVID situation, we just want you to know that no matter how hard pressed you may be right now, and how much you're feeling this pandemic pressure cooker in your marriage, there's hope for you. There's hope. Okay, and so we just ask Lord that you will just release that hope into any couple that is watching this today, that is at that point and feeling a sense of hopelessness or despair, or not seeing a way out of the marriage other than tunnel or in the tunnel of despair and hopelessness, and seeing divorce as the light at the end of the tunnel. Lord, show them that there's a better way.
Yes.
That there's a brighter light that you can see in a future into which they can walk together. Okay, hand in hand, as they did when they first walked out of the church, when they got married. All right,
and you can be a testimony, to give hope to other couples. So never give up.
By the way, here's okay. I like these things are not in our notes. These things are coming out of us. So we're just kind of going with the flow. If you're at that really, really bad point in your marriage, where you feel like you may want to throw in the towel, please do this before you make any decisions. Okay, go pull out your wedding album, or if it's since the advent of video, which was not when we got married. Okay, and so if you have a video of your wedding, or those happy days, go and look through those pictures. Go and watch that video and remind yourself of how you used to be, and how life can be, in your marriage. Again, as a matter of fact, we mentored a couple one time. They had great difficulty getting a breakthrough, and they thought this was really silly, what we're asking them to do. And finally, one day,
to look at
the wedding album video, and they finally one day said, well, Jeeva and Sulojana have been, asking us about whether have you watched it? So just to please them, let's just watch it. And that is what turned their marriage around. As they watched that video, all of a sudden there was a revelation that they got, and they haven't looked back from that point. We turned them around. So that may be for somebody here that's watching. Okay, maybe you didn't need to hear all the teaching on the four telltale signs that we talked about, but this is what you need to hear. Okay, so do that. Contact us. Let us know what you did. as a result of what we shared today and how that impacted you. Hey, we're here for you. Any last words?
No,
No?
I think
Okay. I think we'll run out of pearls to cast today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have a great week, everybody.
Mhm.
We'll do it again next
Yes.
Wednesday. God bless you all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good night.